Okay, it is time for a long overdue Denver real estate market update. These are the completely raw videos that I record every so often, every time we need one, where I just look at data and give it to you straight about what's going on with the real estate market, where we've come and where it's headed. And I used to do these in one take like this, just a completely raw recording because it saved time. But I actually started to enjoy the way it felt when it came to market updates, with no edits, no music, no none of that. Just me talking to you as if I would be talking to a client in a meeting or a consultation or something like that. I like the way that it makes it feel. You really get an idea of kind of where I'm coming from, I think, on this stuff. And really, there's nothing to hide. So when I'm recording this, I haven't decided what I'm going to name this yet, but I kind of have some ideas. And so maybe that's why you clicked on this, maybe not. I'll give you my thesis at the beginning and explain why I titled the video, whatever I titled it. And then, as usual, I just want to go through these graphs. That's what this is. Just you, me, and some hard data. How's that for a Friday night? Huh? Or Tuesday morning, whenever you're watching this. I'm happy you're here. If you don't know Sam Newman, I run a real estate team in the Denver Metro. It's our goal to be your go-to real estate resource. There's ways to reach out everywhere. If we can help you out at all, please do. So I believe that when it's all said and done, when we're through 2025, we will look back at 2025 as the year that Denver real estate prices finally came down. It's hard to see when you're in it, like so many things. You kind of have to look in hindsight. We're looking at a graph right now that shows us real estate prices really haven't come down since the peak very much, if at all. And but I believe for a few reasons, I'll explain why once we look back, when the year is over, when we go through the second half of the year, because that's a really big part of this. It's going to be, this graph is going to look different, and it's going to be the year that many people have been waiting for and predicting, where prices finally came down on some significant way, some significant amount. This is not, I should be very clear, predicting a real estate crash. We don't have the market factors present for a real estate crash, which I have said for literally years. Still, those factors aren't present. Crash, usually people are talking about a reduction in prices of 25% to 30%. Most people, when they look at a crash, that's what they're talking about, something in that neighborhood. That is not going to happen. We do not have those factors present. So really, really important to point that out. I think we're actually overdue for a more reasonable correction, which we have been for a while, but it hasn't happened for a number of reasons. With things changing, inventory being a big one of them, months of supply, how much inventory, how many homes are on the market? That's a big reason for what I believe is going to happen. Just my opinion. I might be wrong. I'll take you through why I think it, and we can go from there. Regarding the real estate crash thing, there have been a lot of people. There are now a lot of people online calling for it, and most of those same people have been saying it's going to happen for the last at least 3 years. And for the last at least 3 years, they have been dead wrong. Eventually, they will be right. If they just keep saying a crash is coming, it's always coming eventually, right? It just depends on when. So if you keep saying it, eventually you're going to be right. I did a video probably a year ago at this point talking about a sort of a macro real estate cycle that takes place over about 17, 18 years. And it doesn't always happen this way, but historically it's very interesting how often it follows this cycle. It's always the same thing, right? It starts with some recovery from a previous crash. Prices start to come up when the economy and broader factors start to improve. We reach hypersupply, and then eventually those prices come down after supply gets to that hypersupply phase. More and more homes on the market. That's pretty much how it always goes. It's not exactly the same amount of time. It doesn't always happen the same way, but that's pretty much the gist of what happens with real estate, and that cycle repeats over and over again. So it's funny to me because we always freak out when prices come down, real estate prices, or stock market, when it drops, we go, oh no, things are bad. Yes, that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it is that's a natural and inevitable part of any market cycle. It's true in real estate. And I think we're overdue for that come down, for that retraction, that correction in prices. And so anyway, Anybody who's been telling you a crash is coming, eventually they will be right. They'll just be wrong a few dozen or 100 times before they're right. And that's something I like to keep in mind. I'm certainly not right about everything. I don't know if I'll be right about this or not. But this just comes from looking at the data and working in real estate on a day-to-day basis and seeing what's going on out there, because it is much different now than it has been in any time in the last 5 years. It's different significantly now than it was a year ago. Let's get into it, shall we? Okay, so this is just a graph of prices. This is from Megan Aller's data set. This is from her monthly report. What we're looking at right now is detached, so single family homes, anything detached. There's a separate report for attached properties. That's a different report. I like to look at detached if we're going to look at one of the two, because this is the primary driver of the greater Denver real estate market. I'll just tell you right now, attached, anything that's going to be condos, townhomes, is going to look bleaker than what we're looking at now. Prices have already come down for condos and townhomes about 9% year over year from 24 to 25. They'll probably come down more. It is a much tougher market right now. We could get into that. We can explain why. Maybe I'll do another video just talking about that. But we're going to look at attached right now, because when many people are discussing housing, this is what they're talking about, and this is the primary driver. Okay. So you'll see this graph. Basically, you see the peak over here. That's mid-2022. Basically, May, June 2022 was the peak of the market. We had a big come down from the middle of 2022 to the end of 2022. And then even in 2023, prices were still correcting, but then they came back up. Actually, no, this is in early 2023. So what you're seeing is a seasonal cycle too. A real estate market like Denver works really on a cyclical 12-year cycle, in addition to that broader cycle. But basically how it goes is first half of the year, prices come up, more buyers are out, more listings are coming on the market. It's the most active time for buying and selling by far in the spring. Spring means different things. Right now, it's about February to May. Somewhere in there is the prime of the market. Then second half of the year, somewhere around 4th of July, things start to calm down. And second half of the year, prices actually come down. More supply on the market, fewer people out buying, fewer homes being sold, prices come down. It's usually they go up, let's say 8 to 12%, I'm just using numbers here, the first half of the year, and then they come back down 5 to 7% second half of the year. So when you look at the year, after the fact, as a whole, prices went up. 4 to 6% is a kind of a normal increase year over year in the Denver metro. So basically, but if we look at the peak in 2022 here, until now, not much change. Yes, they're down a little bit from then, but if you look at 23 and 24, we're pretty much on par. It's been very, very flat overall when you're taking the year as a whole in account. And so let me see if I can get my drawing here. Yeah. Okay. And so we're looking at average sold price and median sold price. This is across the 7-county Denver metro. Megan Aller, love your stats. She's the best. I've had her on the channel once. I'd like to have her again. Median sold price has hovered around 665 for a long time when it comes to single families, years, literally, in the Denver metro. And so, but you're seeing year over year here, prices are actually up a little bit for single families. If we're looking at median, they're up almost 2%. Average sold price, they're up 0.8%. So you could say that's flat or up slightly. And that's just been the story of the last few years, right? Interest rates went way, way up. Demand was still there. Affordability got way tougher. Things leveled out a little bit. Buyers aren't going way over asking in most cases right now. Sometimes there's still multiple offer bidding more situations, but in most cases they're not. Buyers have way more opportunity and way more room for negotiation. We're seeing a seller concession on an insane percentage of sales right now. We will get to those numbers as well. But that's the other thing. So this is sold prices, okay? Sold prices have been flat for a number of years, basically, because affordability's gotten worse. Basically, the interest rates are what they are, making it much more challenging to make a monthly payment on a lot of these homes work for you, even median priced single family homes. But there's the buyer demand is still so much there. There's millennials are the biggest home buying generation right now for first timers. They're finally buying their first home, some of them second homes as well. There's a huge buyer pool right now waiting to buy a home. Many of them lost out during the bidding wars of 21 and 22. Many of them are just reaching that time where they're finally ready. So the buyer demand is there. Prices have stayed high because essentially interest rates going up made affordability worse. The demand is still there. So prices aren't coming down because the demand's there, but they're also not going up because people just can't afford it at some point. If there's a $700,000 house now that you're going to pay $4,000 a month for, if prices went up, now it's $5,000, $5,500 with interest rates where they are, people just can't afford it. So that's kind of kept things stagnant for a long time. But this is just sold prices. There's a little bit of hidden data when I'm talking about seller concessions, and we will get to that. This is a really, really busy graph, but what I like to look at here is just months supply of inventory. So currently we're at 2.7 months of supply. Let me grab this guy again, because this is how we measure inventory in real estate, how many months of supply. If nothing was sold, if nothing new came on the market, how many months would it take everything to sell? 2.7. At the height of things, when inventory was hyper low, that was around 1 month. It dipped below 1 month briefly. That's bidding more territory. That's multiple offer territory. That's buyer hell territory for the most part. But when you look at here, months of supply is up and actually active. So just two different ways to look at it. But months of supply is up 50%. Current active properties, just two different ways to look at the data, is up 45%. So it's about 50% year over year. And if you take in attached properties into this too, we're looking at 60%. That's a huge number. That's supply at levels we haven't seen. If you just look at the black bar, this is months of supply, okay? Or the blue bar is active too. But you see it shoot up. If we just look at the blue bar, because it's easy, you can see it above the fray here. We haven't seen this many currently active properties on the market since 2013. It's the last time. So, but prices haven't changed too much. Again, there's the seller concession thing to talk about. But basically, what we're seeing here, okay, is, and let me be done there, but what we're seeing here is a few things. So it's prices staying stagnant, but it's more and more listings creeping on the market, more and more listings staying on the market because they're not selling as fast. And because people are finally, more new listings are coming on the market too, because you see that's up 3.7% year over year. It's not huge, but that's significant. People are starting to understand, starting to come to terms with giving up their 3% interest rate, right? That's a big, big talking point in this whole thing. I don't want to move because I don't want to give this up. Well, life happens. And my team and I are actually helping dozens of people literally right now who bought in 2022. Or 2023, who have, even some 2021, lower interest rate than you would get right now on the open market. And that's not a long time to be in a house and move, but there's some life event that's happening. And they're saying, okay, interest rate be damned. I don't want to have to pay 7%, but I need to move. I need a bigger space for my family. I need to downsize. I need to be closer to work, closer to the mountains, any of these things. More active units coming on the market. So, but homes have taken so much longer to sell, and so prices haven't come down. So sellers are still pricing based on those numbers. We see when you look at pricing a home, you look at comps, right? And so the comps are still at the same baseline. And so more and more units are creeping on the market, but we're still pricing as if a time where there were fewer units on the market, right? We look at the last 6 months, sometimes the last year if you need to try to get an idea of where we're going to be. So what I think is happening right now is sellers are still pricing prices of yesteryear, and there are more homes coming on the market. That's why it's taking longer for homes to sell. The average days on market right now is about 45, depending on where you look. That's up big time from the height of things. It was 4. But even in recent times, it was 12, 20. We're at 45 right now. So prices, at least list prices, aren't coming down, but homes are taking longer to sell. And what's going to happen eventually is if this inventory keeps creeping up, if this months of supply and active inventory number keeps creeping up, and I'm seeing it already, sellers start to say, I'm tired of being on the market. I'm ready to sell. We need to do a price reduction. So it's a lagging indicator, which is why I'm saying we kind of need to look in hindsight in 2026 at 2025 to see what happens. But I believe more sellers are going to make that decision because if your house is on the market, you've decided you want to sell. And sometimes the best way, sometimes the only way to sell is to do that price reduction and get even lower. In an environment like we have right now, when there are so many listings for buyers to choose from, get even lower than where the comps say you should sell. And that's what's going to cause prices to come down. I believe. The other thing is we talk about seasonality, the second half of the year. That's what we're moving into. So prices really haven't come down the first half of the year. Second half of the year, in my estimation, is what's going to drive this because, like I said before, that's the time of year where that we come down from that hump anyway. And the fact that we have so much more supply to start the year, it's only going to get more as we move into the second half of the year. And as buyers fall off, 4th of July holiday, summer, people are traveling, then you get into August, September, we're getting ready for school, kids are going back to school, less buyer activity. This active number of active units on the market is going to keep going up. And it's going to get significantly higher than it is right now. And so to compete with even more and more active inventory on the market, I believe sellers are going to have to cut the price of their home even more. How much is it going to come down when we look at 2025? Again, it might not be anything. It could be flat again. I could be wrong. Based on this, based on what we're seeing every day in the market with people actually going to buy or sell, I think we'll have a significant number. I don't know what it is. It's not 25. Maybe they're down 5%. 10% would be huge. I don't think we'll get to that. But we'll, I believe, see some significant price drop. This is the odds of selling. We can look at odds of selling data here. Basically, this is just of all the homes listed in a given month, how many of them sold in 1 month. Right now, the odds of selling are at 41%. So if you list your home, you have a 41% chance of getting under contract in 1 month. I mean, the height was almost pushing 90 when things were crazy. But if you look at this peak right here, when's the last time it was there? 2012, 2013, down that low. Same thing. Odds of selling by price range, this is interesting too. As we get into luxury and ultra luxury, it takes a longer time. Of course, if anything's, this is single family homes, so if anything's $200,000 to $400,000, that's selling immediately. But we look at the $400,000 to $600,000 price range, that's starter home for a lot of folks right now. That's odds of selling are 45%. If we look at 1 million to 1.5, that's 36%. Significant difference. And the 1 million to 1.5 million price point isn't crazy luxury anymore because of where prices have gone. That is a nice, spacious home in a good Denver neighborhood. That's what you're finding there right now. A big difference between those two price points. And that's part of the story too. Odds of selling by zip code. It varies greatly by zip code. I've done other market updates where I talked about how hyper-segmented the market is right now. And Megan Aller, who puts these stats together, when I had her on the channel, she said in 20 some odd years of doing real estate, she's never seen it so segmented by zip code and by neighborhood. If you are downtown, it is, I don't want to say a death sentence, but it is so hard to sell right now because of a lot of factors. But then if you're in one of these kind of inner ring suburbs, Highlands Ranch is very popular. Centennial's popular. Littleton, parts of Littleton, very popular right now. Even up by, you got Central Park, Montbello up there, very popular. Broomfield, Westminster. We're still seeing multiple offer situations on some, in some cases. A lot of them, it still takes 60, 90 days. But you look at this. So basically, you can see red means more competitive, better for sellers. Green or blue means better for buyers. You're seeing a lot of Denver neighborhoods, classic desirable Denver neighborhoods, moving much slower right now. Wash Park, Platt Park, Sloan's Lake, Edgewater, technically its own town, but still, Park Hill even. Some of these that are, prices haven't come down again, but sellers are looking, well, my neighbor sold for this last year, I'm going to list at that. Okay, you can do that. So then the price is still kind of where it is. It's just going to take a long time to sell. That's what's happening. That's why the odds of selling are so much lower in these neighborhoods. This is average and median days depending how long it takes. Right now, average days on market is 30. This is for single families. I mentioned 45 before. That was including single family and attached properties. But 30 right now, that's up 20% year over year. And this is the May data, by the way. This is the most recent full month report we have. Pending in 7 days or less, 42%, which is not bad. It's not like we're in a full-scale complete buyer's market. That's probably important to point out too. This is just much different from what we're used to. And so it's much more favored, much more buyer friendly than we're used to. Average days on market by price range. You're seeing this tell a story too, you know, way up here. We're going, this is average. So this is swayed by outliers, but 2 to 3 million, 57 days, 1.5 to 2 million, 27 days, a million to 1.5. We looked at that. That's average 29 days on market. So kind of right where the greater average is. You know, but actually now that I look at it, this is pretty similar across price points. It goes up and down a little bit, but This is, it's average, so it's swayed by outliers, as I said. But this is, okay, so this is the concessions page. This is the one I really wanted to look at here. Because we talked about prices not coming down, but seller concessions have become much more prominent, much more popular. So basically, rather than do a price reduction, it's a different way to do the same thing. It's the seller giving you some sort of cash back at closing. The reason this way of structuring a deal is so popular right now is because the last few years, this cash concession can be used for an interest rate buy down. That's one of the things that's unlocking the market and not letting it go to a screeching halt, which it otherwise might. But basically, you can not game the system, but it's a way to structure a deal where if I, rather than asking for a $15,000 price reduction, I can get $15,000 in seller concessions. And that's going to, if I apply that to my loan for a buy down of the interest rate, that's going to save me a lot more on a monthly basis on my monthly payment than a price reduction of that same size would. Seller, it's all the same. Doesn't matter. 15 here, 15 there. They don't care. For buyers, it makes a big difference. That's why they've become so prominent. Okay. And if you look at concessions, they vary greatly by price range. And you're seeing them, again, 1 to 1.5. 50% of closed transactions had some sort of seller concession on them. If we go down here to starter home territory, 4 to 600, 71%. That's all of them. As far as I'm concerned, that's every transaction. And I was talking to Janine, one of my business partners, yesterday. We were looking at this graph and we were saying, we were tallying up deals. We said, yep, that one had one. Oh, that one had one. It was surprising to see that kind of number, but almost every deal we're doing right now has some sort of seller concession. It's not always the big one for the interest rate buy down, and there are limits on how big it can be. So, it's not always 15, 20 grand. Sometimes it's $500 for an inspection item. Sometimes it's a few $1,000s for inspection, for something else. But these are big numbers. And so this is sort of the hidden data on where sold prices haven't come down, but concessions have become more prominent. Percentage of concessions by zip code, which is interesting. I don't know why I wanted to include that. Concession amount. Okay, this is the average concession amount, which you can see. I'm going to move myself over here real quick so we can look at this. So we're looking at 10,000 and then in basically 10 to 15,000 for average concessions. Significant. Very significant. Okay. Just based on what we talked about before, I did want to show this. I've showed this before. I like showing it now. When we talk about affordability and the big challenge, you always hear it. Oh, interest rates, 7%. That's not so high. Somebody old is going to say interest rates were 18% in the 80s and we still bought. My retort is yes, but homes cost $40 back then. Things have changed quite a bit. So when you have home prices that have stayed high, sorry, this is getting long. I'll wrap it up soon. And interest rates that have gone up significantly from the low point and are still, higher than they were in, let's say, 10, 15 years ago, where they hovered kind of between 4 and 5%. We have an affordability challenge. So if you look at the principal and interest payment, the average principal and interest payment, assuming 10% down based on median sold price in the Denver metro, that's this blue graph. Okay, so we're back here in 2018, 2019, 2020. 2021, prices were shooting up, but the payments were still low. Then look what happened. 22 and 23, it went way up. It's actually come down a little bit from the peak. But when you're looking at, this is the interest rate over here, and this is the monthly payment. This is for a median sold price Denver home. We're between $4,000 and $5,000. So when people tell you, oh, affordability, it's not that bad, that's not accurate. It is a real problem. And I love this graph even more because we're adjusting for inflation. So basically when we got, it's not inflation, it's percentage of income. So in a way it adjusts for wages, okay? But this is the percentage of income you need to use to make that monthly payment. That's the red line. And you see, same story there. It actually has come down a little bit more than we saw previously, but we're talking about your percentage of your income. We're talking about at the peak, on average, putting down 50% of your income on housing. And now we're at 45. It's still not good. A healthy market is down here at around 30%. So all these factors put together, a lot of this, the affordability thing has been present for a long time. The odds of selling thing and changing has been present for a long time. What's new in 2025 is the inventory. It's the active units on the market. It's people finally saying they're going to sell and things not selling as fast. It's this 8,000 active units number. It's 45% increase year over year. That's just a monster number. And that's why I think that when we look back at this year, we will see this graph change too up here. What does that mean? Does that mean you shouldn't buy in the second half of this year? No, you're going to get a great deal if you do. And I don't know, the real estate agent thing to say is it's always a good time to buy. I don't think it is. Looking at those affordability graphs, I don't think it's the best option for everybody right now. It's a good option for some people, but not for everybody. It's important to keep in mind that real estate is a long-term investment. We're not talking 4 or 5 years. You're probably okay if you need to sell in 4 or 5 years in most cases. It's 10, 15, 20 years. That's where the wealth creation really comes in. And so that's important to remember in that you can't time the market. You really can't, gang. I know it'd be nice to, but some people did and they got lucky the last, 4 or 5 years. At this point, it's time in the market, not timing the market. I know that's an annoying thing you may have heard before. I hear it a lot. It's a good long-term investment. And when markets drop, there's a lot of people who make a lot of money buying when markets come down, right? That's buy low, sell high. Of course, that's Econ 101, I believe. I fell asleep in it, to be quite honest. But so I don't know what's the right thing for you. It's purely dependent on the situation. It might be a good time to buy. It might not be a good time to buy. Is it a good time to sell the second half of this year? No, probably not. If you can, I would tell you to wait until the first half of next year, at least till we get to that more active spring market. It's going to be your best chance of success. So like I said, if there's anything I can do for you, would love to talk it over. My info's everywhere. Otherwise, thanks. See ya.